Hello, Scott Thomas here with Stewardship Matters. The year was 2009. Tough year, very tough year. And I talked to several people about what was going on in their lives. Banking was a big deal. And if you recall, the banks were shutting down all lines of credit. In fact, I went to one business owner and he said, Scott, I went out and I chose 5 different sources for lines of credit for my business because it's that important. So he had somebody from his church, he had somebody that was a neighbor, he had somebody from his Rotary Club, he had a small bank and a large bank. And so he had these 5 relationships and he said, overnight they all shut me down. I couldn't get, and I almost had to shutter my business. That's not unusual. So what else happened in 2009 with these lines of credit being shut down? Is we saw a lot of mortgages. We saw a lot of foreclosures. Who did the bank foreclose on first? Who was the very first person they would foreclose on? Interesting enough, it was the people who had a lot of equity. They knew they could foreclose on them. They knew they were behind on a payment and they knew that they could sell that house and actually turn it into a money-making opportunity. So if you were diligent and you were paying down extra on your mortgage, if you were the kind of person that says, oh yeah, I want to pay down on my mortgage, but you didn't have enough liquidity over here, and now there's a terrible event outside of your control, and now the bank says to you, we're going to foreclose because you're late, that's a terrible thing. So the people who had no equity in their place, that were upside down, that were stretched out, the banks stretched those out 2, 3, 4 years later. Sometimes they didn't even go after them. They just wrote it off. But they went after the people that had real equity where they could step up and say, we're going to make some money on this. And by the way, the fees for all the attorneys and all of that process also comes out of the proceeds. So the bank wasn't on the hook for anything. Just something to think about. If you'd like to know about money market rates right now, a great website for you to go to is bankrate.com. That's bankrate.com, and you could click on money markets, CDs. You could go see what are the local banks paying and what are national banks. The brick and mortar banks aren't paying very much on money markets right now. You'll look at some of the credit card type companies and the more virtual banks. They're paying really well now on savings accounts, significantly higher than they were 1, 2, 3 years ago. So go look at bankrate.com, and if you have questions and you still want to reach out to me, Scott at stewardshipmatters.net.